Excusez-moi, monsieur. You are blocking the pavement. Claire Fontaine, 34-year-old manager of a small café on Rue de Rivoli in Paris, stepped outside with a tray of empty glasses and nearly walked straight into a large man standing completely still on the footpath. It was a Saturday afternoon in October 2009. The street was alive the way Paris always is on weekends. Tourists with cameras pointed at everything, locals weaving through them with the practiced irritation of people who live inside a postcard. Street musicians every 50 meters. The smell of coffee and cigarettes drifting through the autumn air. The man blocking her path looked about 65, broad-shouldered but moving with the careful economy of someone whose body had collected too many stories. His face was deeply lined, not from old age, but from decades of living at a volume most people never reach. Silver hair swept back from his forehead, dark sunglasses despite the gray October sky, a worn black leather jacket that had clearly never been chosen for fashion, and rings on nearly every finger. Heavy, silver, the kind that don't come from a jewelry store, but from a life fully lived. He wasn't looking at Claire. He wasn't looking at anything in front of him. He was listening. Claire followed his gaze across the narrow street to where a teenage boy, maybe 16, sat on an overturned milk crate with an acoustic guitar balanced on his knee. The boy had a handwritten cardboard sign propped against his open case. A few coins glinted inside it. The boy was playing Que je t'aime. Not perfectly. His chord transitions had the slight hesitation of someone still building muscle memory. His voice cracked once on the high notes. But he played with his eyes closed and his face tilted slightly upward, the way people only play when they have forgotten entirely that anyone is watching. He sang it like it meant something to him personally, like the song had always belonged to him. The large man in the leather jacket had not moved in nearly 2 minutes. Claire assumed he was a tourist, someone old enough to recognize the song, moved enough to stop. She went back inside. When she came out 10 minutes later to collect more glasses, the man was still there, still standing, still listening. She would later tell everyone she spoke to that she had no idea, that she looked at him and saw just another stranger on a Paris street, that the thought never even crossed her mind. The teenage boy, his name was Theo, 16 years old, from the 11th arrondissement, had been playing on this particular stretch of Rue de Rivoli every Saturday for 3 months. He was saving money for a better guitar. He played classic French songs because they drew older pedestrians who were more likely to drop coins than teenagers passing with headphones on. Que je t'aime was always his best earner. His grandfather had played it on a small tape deck in his kitchen every Sunday morning for as long as Theo could remember. When his grandfather passed away the previous spring, Theo had learned the song note by note from an old YouTube recording. It was the first full song he had ever mastered. It felt like something he owed. He finished the song, opened his eyes, and noticed the large man had crossed the street and was now standing directly in front of him. Most people who stopped to listen dropped a coin without making eye contact and kept walking. Some said merci, as though Theo had done something for them. This man did neither. He crouched down, slowly, to Theo's eye level, the way adults do when they want to speak to you as an equal rather than from above, and said in a low, graveled voice, "You changed the tempo in the second verse. Slower than the original." He paused. "It works better, actually. More feeling." Theo blinked. "You know this song?" "A little," the man said. "It is very old," Theo said, slightly embarrassed. "My grandfather loved Johnny Hallyday. I learned it for him." The large man looked at the guitar in Theo's hands. "May I?" Theo hesitated for exactly 1 second. This was his only instrument, then handed it over. Something about the way the man asked made refusal feel unnecessary. The guitar passed between them with the naturalness of something returning to where it belonged. What happened next, Theo would describe for the rest of his life. The man sat down on the edge of the pavement, the way someone sits who has long stopped caring what sitting on pavements looks like. He settled the guitar on his knee. His ringed fingers found the neck with the casual familiarity of someone who had held 10,000 guitars, and he began to play Que je t'aime. Not a version of it, not a careful recreation of it. He played it the way it had always been played, at the tempo it was born at, with the exact feeling it was written to carry, because he had written it. Because his fingers had played this particular sequence of notes so many times over 40 years that they no longer needed to think. They simply remembered. The sound that came out of Theo's inexpensive acoustic guitar should not have been possible. It was a student instrument, bought second-hand, with strings that needed replacing. But in those hands, on that gray Saturday pavement in Paris, it sounded like a concert hall. Theo's face moved through several expressions in the space of about 4 seconds. First, surprise that the old man could actually play. Second, the slow realization that he was playing it better than any recording Theo had ever heard. Third, something approaching confusion, because the man wasn't playing it. He was inhabiting it, the way only one person in the world could inhabit that particular song. Fourth, the moment the recognition arrived, sudden and total, like a light switched on in a dark room. Theo said nothing for a long time. He simply stared. Then, very quietly, "You are Johnny Hallyday." The man looked up from the guitar. His expression was warm and slightly amused, and something else, something that looked very much like gratitude. "And you," he said, "play my song better than most people I have met." Theo's hands were shaking. "I learned it because of my grandfather. He died in March. He loved you. He had every record." Johnny Hallyday, who had performed for millions of people across 5 decades, who had filled the Stade de France multiple times, who had been awarded the Legion of Honor by the President of France, looked at this 16-year-old boy sitting on a milk crate with a cardboard sign and a few coins in his guitar case, and said simply, "Tell me about him." And so Theo did. He talked about his grandfather's kitchen and the tape deck and the Sunday mornings. He talked about learning the song after the funeral, note by note, in his bedroom, because it was the only way he knew to keep something of the old man close. Johnny listened without interrupting. He asked 1 or 2 quiet questions. He nodded. When Theo finished, Johnny was quiet for a moment. Then he picked up the guitar again and played the opening of Que je t'aime one more time. Slower this time, in the tempo Theo had used, the one Johnny had said worked better. He played it like a small ceremony for a man he had never met, whose grandson was now watching with tears running openly down his face on a busy Paris pavement. A small crowd had gathered by now. Most of them had taken out their phones. A few had already begun filming. None of them had said a word, because none of them wanted to break whatever this was. When he finished, Johnny handed the guitar back to Theo. He stood up, slowly, and reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a folded piece of paper, a receipt it turned out, from a cafe nearby, and wrote something on the back of it with a pen from another pocket. He handed it to Theo. It was a phone number, and beneath it, 4 words in Johnny's handwriting. "Pour ton grand-père," for your grandfather. Theo looked at the paper, then he looked up. But the large man in the leather jacket was already walking away down Rue de Rivoli, hands back in his pockets, moving with the careful economy of someone whose body had collected too many stories. Back into the crowd, back into the ordinary Saturday afternoon, as though nothing had happened at all. The videos appeared online that evening. By Sunday, they had been shared across France. By Monday, the whole world was watching a 16-year-old boy cry on a Paris pavement, while Johnny Hallyday played his own song back to him in honor of a grandfather neither of them had ever spoken about before that afternoon. What people said, watching those videos, was that they had never seen anything like it. What they meant was that they had never seen someone so famous be so completely, so quietly, so entirely human. Johnny Hallyday passed away on December 5, 2017, at the age of 74. France lit the Eiffel Tower in his honor. Hundreds of thousands lined the streets of Paris to say goodbye. President Macron called him a French hero. But Theo, now grown, keeps a different memory. Not the stadiums, not the records, not the Legion of Honor. He keeps a folded piece of paper in his wallet, a phone number that no longer connects, and 4 words written in heavy, ringed handwriting on the back of a cafe receipt. Pour ton grand-père.